You.
All right, great. Well, I am just so excited to be here with you all today. We've got just 1 minute here before we officially jump in. So if you haven't had a chance to let us know where you're joining in from, this is the moment to do it. I see folks from Spain and New Mexico and Croatia. I'm based on the East Coast, so in New Jersey, right outside of New York City. And I'm just so pumped to have some time to spend with you today to talk about this idea of giving feedback. And John, it looks like I need the screen sharing permission. So just once I get that thumbs up, I'll make sure. I know
So sorry, Monica. I always
no
forget about that.
worries. I was setting up my screen here in the background. So now
You should
I've
be
got
good
it
now.
and we are able to share. All right. So as you can see on my screen, today is all about giving effective feedback in online spaces. And we are going to look at a bunch of things related to giving feedback, an important part of any process that you're doing with students, whether it's part of a regular formative assessment routine, whether it's something that you work on regularly in different ways with a group. Today, we're going to look at best practices and considerations for feedback in general. So we're going to start off talking more generally about best practices and what it looks like. And then we're going to make a big book creator connection. And if you haven't seen it yet, I am just super pumped for you to check out what the feedback tools now look like inside of Book Creator. And so we're going to go through a bunch of things, like I said, starting off with some of the big ideas and connections to best practices with feedback. Then we'll jump into what this looks like with the new big announcements from Book Creator. And I'm hoping that along the way, you will type in any questions that you have. You will share in the chat anything you're curious about or wondering about, or things that you've tried out already. If we haven't met before, you heard my name, Monica Burns, already with that intro from John. I'm a former New York City public school teacher, still based on the East Coast, and I've spent a lot of time the past several years, a decade now, of blogging, and 3.5 years on the podcast, sharing lots of favorites. So on my blog, classtechtips.com, and my podcast, the Easy Ed Tech podcast. On my blog, there's actually a button at the bottom with Book Creator, and you can press that and you can see all the things I've shared with Book Creator. Now, today, as we talk about giving feedback, I thought I would start off with just setting the stage for some of the reasons why I love giving feedback in spaces where kids can create multimedia products of learning. Now, when we think about feedback today, we're giving action items, we're sharing a next step, we're asking a question of someone. Feedback could include peer feedback, where students are sharing with one another, or it might be teacher to student feedback. And when we think about students creating in different spaces, we really want to make sure that we're able to check in, see their progress, make a comment right within that space where it's easy for them to read that comment, listen to that comment, watch that comment, things we'll look at together today. Because if we give feedback, if anyone gives feedback, a student to a peer or classmate, we want to make sure that that feedback is truly effective, that they're able to take action on that information that we've shared. And that's really what we're thinking about today. Now, formative assessment is a topic that's kind of adjacent to what we're talking about. Feedback is a piece of a formative assessment routine. But one thing I often say, and if you've been on a webinar with me in the past at ISTE or another event where I've talked about formative assessment, you've probably heard me say the same thing I often start off with, which is there's no point in collecting formative assessment data if we're not going to do something with it. And this is really where feedback is that action item, right? We've collected information, we're checking in on student progress, and this is the action we're taking, right, as educators giving feedback. But we also want to make sure that it's easy for students to take action on what feedback they've received. And some of that is removing the barriers, giving feedback in a place where they're already spending time, like within a creation tool like Book Creator. So you're going to see some of those pieces as we take a look at this today. So as we get ready to talk about best practices for feedback and looking at feedback in action, I love to hear from you in the chat. You can do a yes, no, not sure. Have you heard about some of the new feedback features inside of Book Creator? These are pretty new, like this summer new. So let us know in the chat. Yes, I've heard about them. Maybe that's why you're here today. Nope, I haven't heard about them yet. I'm just excited about feedback. You can let us know in the chat if you've checked these out before. We're going to come back to this today as we talk about all things best practice for feedback. I see some not yets, but I want to give you some context for where we are heading. So today we're going to talk all about the different things you can do in Book Creator. And if you're new to Book Creator, you are in for a treat to see all the things that you can do. If you have spent time already, and some of you who've used these feedback features, I'm sure have spent plenty of time here inside of Book Creator, then you already know that you can make interactive books, add images, text, emojis, and more, record audio and video, use accessibility features, and share student work with the world. So today, as we talk about feedback in general first, and then within Book Creator, we're not just talking about making the books, right, or the creative pieces that students might participate in, but we're going to look at some of the features like images, text, emojis, audio, video that you can use as part of a feedback routine. You're going to see as we go through today that I'm going to point out how to access the feedback. You might want to play along with me today as we do that. But before we press all the buttons and dive in and try some things out together, I want to start off with some best practices for feedback so that when we are giving feedback today, when we're thinking about what this looks like in a classroom that you're leading or with colleagues that you are sharing examples with, that we can really focus on that meaty, wonderful, actionable feedback that you can now give much easier through different types of multimedia right inside of Book Creator. So I thought we could start off by thinking about feedback and making a connection to the ISTE standards. So one of the standards within the ISTE standards for educators, that is educators as analysts. So educators understand and use data to drive their instruction and support students in achieving their learning goals. And feedback is an essential piece of addressing this particular standard. We know that when we give feedback, we're utilizing different tools, we're giving actionable information inside of spaces that students are in, and it's helping us make instructional decisions too. So one of the sub areas is that we can provide alternative ways for students to demonstrate competency and reflect on their learning using technology, something that definitely happens within this blank canvas page inside of Book Creator. We also know as we jump to to our next one here. I got excited there. To our next one there, 27B, that next sub standard, that we can use technology to design and implement a variety of formative and summative assessments that accommodate learner needs, provide timely feedback to students, and inform instruction. So feedback's right there within inside this sub standard, providing timely feedback to students. So we want to make sure it is quick and relevant for them and accommodates their needs. And you'll see that you have the opportunity today to give feedback in a few different ways, and that's really crucial. And then this last piece here, use assessment data to guide and progress and communicate with students, parents, and education stakeholders to build student self-direction. So kids can monitor the feedback that you give, they can take action on it, and this is something that you can share as you are thinking about what your students need too. So there's a great quote from Grant Wiggins, 7 Keys to Effective Feedback, that I thought we could break down as we get ready to jump into all the things you can do inside of Book Creator. helpful feedback is goal referenced. So it's connected to the learning goal. I don't know about you, but I often think about doing a read aloud for students, right? And you've got this great book that you love, and I could talk about all sorts of things in many books, right? I could make a personal connection, a connection to the world. We could talk about context clues or using illustrations. Like that book, there's probably a lot of ways that we could talk about all the great things that are inside of it. But if I'm really goal reference, if I'm connected to the learning goal, I'm not going to talk about all the things on that one mini lesson, right? I'm going to talk about one big thing and go deep into that. And same thing happens here when we give helpful feedback. If we're connected to a specific goal, like I am reviewing student work and we've been talking all about one specific thing, like using domain specific vocabulary, well, my feedback's not going to be on how much I like the colors on their book, right? It's going to be on how they're using that domain specific vocabulary. So really goal referenced is part of what we're considering in our feedback. Feedback should be tangible and transparent, so making it easy for students to consume that information. So not something that's tricky or super wordy, but really something they can wrap their heads around. Tangible, we often think about as something we can like hold in our hands, right? But we know in digital spaces, it's not exactly like that, right? But they should be able to point to it, say, yep, I've got it. It's clear and transparent. The next piece that's going to be important for us today, and something you've heard me mention already, is this idea about being actionable, that our feedback isn't just an emoji, although that might be part of it, but it also has an action item that goes alongside of it, right? So we can say, I love how you did X, Y, and Z. Here is something I love to see you consider or take action on. So that actionable piece is also a part of it. We want to make sure that anything that we are sharing with students, right, that feedback that we're sharing with them is really user friendly, right? Or in this case, student friendly. It's specific, so it's not tricky or talking about a lot of things, but it is very pointed on one piece. It's personalized. So although you might use a canned response or you might have a list of things you find yourself saying frequently to students, there's absolutely that level of personalization that goes alongside of it. Helpful feedback is timely, right? We know that if we get feedback much later on anything that we're doing, it's no longer front of mind for us, and maybe we're finished even, right? So that feedback is interesting, but not really useful for us anymore. So we want to make sure that we're giving timely feedback. One of the reasons that I love using digital tools, and Book Creator is such a great example of this, is that you can work much more efficiently to give timely feedback. As a classroom teacher, and you can tell me in the chat if you've had a similar experience, I would collect marble notebooks, like composition notebooks from students. I'd ask them to leave it open or put a sticky note or a pencil as a bookmark in whatever page they had last worked on. And when I would give feedback to them, maybe on a sticky note or somewhere on there, right? Like it would take a lot of time. By the time we got those notebooks back out, right, or we sat down and looked at them again, it might be a big gap between when they were working on something and when they were checking out that feedback. So in a digital space like Book Creator, and you're going to see this in just a moment, you're able to give that instant feedback. Kids get that notification, right? They'll see it pop up on their page as soon as it pops, as soon as you hit enter, if you will. We want to make sure it's ongoing. It's part of a regular routine for students. If you are doing something every once in a while, it's hard to make it stick. But if kids know to expect something, I just had this conversation with an educator earlier this week, and we were talking, and you almost want kids to say, like, what happened to that? Or why haven't we done this recently, right? Like it's such a routine, they'll know if it's missing. We always do this at the end of class, right? And so this is something where you want it to be ongoing and expected so kids can take action. So that consistency is really key. It could be consistency in format, or it could be consistency in just the cadence with which you are providing those updates. So I love these 7 keys to effective feedback by Grant Wiggins, fellow ASCD author. You can learn more about the 7 keys for feedback on ASCD's website, but thought it would be a great way for us to anchor our conversation thinking about feedback today. Now, you can communicate feedback, right, in lots of different ways. You can communicate support for students. So you can say, I know you've been working so hard on this piece. I noticed, right, that you are working on this one particular component, right? So you can give that specific support. You can communicate enthusiasm. Sometimes enthusiasm can be lost in a message, right? In a text message. My sister just had a baby girl, so she is on the go a lot, right? So her text messages tend to be pretty short and concise because she's got a lot going on, right? I know her voice, right? I know when she's enthusiastic about something, but I also know that if there's someone I'm not so close with who's sending a quick, short message, I might be unclear in their tone, right? But if I heard their voice and they read that aloud to me, I would know exactly how enthusiastic they are. So we'll look today at how you might consider using voice or video to communicate that enthusiasm too. You can also communicate advice. So a suggestion, not necessarily an action item, but a suggestion for someone to consider. Or you might give that clear next step. So with a teacher feedback hat on, these are all things that might come into your conversations when you're leaving feedback. If you are here today with peer feedback on your mind, you might decide to bring this as part of an ongoing routine for feedback in a classroom setting that you're a part of. You might decide to share exemplars and non-exemplars, so great examples of feedback. And do we really think that's a good idea for feedback, right? So you might even have a conversation with students, say like, which one of these pieces of feedback do you think is more effective or more appropriate or more actionable for someone? And you might decide that you have students set up feedback buddies so they know exactly who it is that they are going to always give feedback to. This is great to make sure nobody gets left out or gets a lot more feedback than someone else and maybe feels like they're, just a little too present in terms of getting feedback. So you might have students that always work with each other for a particular project before switching it up. And it's also important to provide time to reflect on the process. So students can say, it felt great to give feedback today, or it felt strange to get feedback, or it felt confusing to get feedback. So you can really open up those conversations with students too. So as you heard me mention already, feedback can include text, audio, video. There's lots of types of media that you can use to really show off different kinds of feedback, to share that support, that enthusiasm, that next step with a group. So I'm curious, and you can let us know in the chat before we talk a bit about feedback specifically in Book Creator. What types of feedback have you given? Do you typically give feedback on a sticky note? Do you post a response in Google Classroom? Do you record your voice using a voice recording tool to share feedback? Let us know in the chat. So Angela shared audio. Yep, lots of tools to help make audio happen in different spaces. You might use text, whether it's a voice to text. I know sometimes if I'm leaving a comment somewhere that doesn't have an audio feature, I will do voice to text on my device. So you might use stickies in different places. Yeah, lots of ways to give feedback. And there is no one right way to do it, right? You want to take in those 7 keys. You want to take in the ISTE standards into consideration. Lots and lots of options, text and images, right? So many things that you might bring into that conversation. So if you are going to jump in today and look at feedback inside of Book Creator, this is going to be a great opportunity to put these ideas into action. And if the things we just talked about, like if the slides that we just looked at are ones that you want to refer back to, this will be up on the Book Creator YouTube channel. So you'll be able to access this and the other webinars I've done for Book Creator there. so that you can replay or share what we're talking about today, especially this first half, this first chunk about feedback around conversations you might want to have with colleagues. So let's take a look at feedback specifically in Book Creator. I am going to share with you some links in the chat that you might want to explore and bookmark. This is the big announcement all about feedback in Book Creator. So this new feature for commenting. And I'm also going to share with you in here a useful help page that addresses some questions and some different things that we're going to go through and take a look at. But I always like to give you resources you can bookmark as we're watching. If you use a note-taking tool, you can plot these links in there too, that you have them as references to come back to. So let's take a look at some screenshots, and then we're going to go out live and try this out. And I'll encourage you to sign in and play along with me too. So here we are looking at feedback in Book Creator, right? So on my right-hand side of the screen, I have a feedback menu or option, a column where I can start getting to work with giving feedback. To access this, I tap on the plus sign at the bottom that's now hidden, and I can hit the X sign to get rid of it. Down here at the very bottom, and I'm going to do a little zoom here on my slide here, so zoom down for you, you'll see all of the options that you have for commenting inside of Book Creator. Now, this is a new feature, so if you haven't used it yet, or you have used it and you've got questions, this is the time to ask. So if you're joining us live, put those questions in the Q&A, that way we can make sure to address them today too. So right down here, you see a few different options: video, voice, emoji, and then adding in some of the different apps inside of Book Creator for some additional feedback options. And of course, you could do your text note right there too. This is what it looks like after you record your voice. You are hitting the start recording button. You have the opportunity to leave a quick audio response. Once your audio response is recorded, you can add some text alongside of it. You might have noticed in this last slide that there's a 2-minute limit here. I have a feeling that you're going to want your comments to be even shorter than that. You're going to want these to be short and sweet so that students actually listen to them, right? If you see a 2-minute thing, right, you want them to make sure that they're going to actually listen to them. So short and sweet. And then of course you can add the text above, like left you a quick note, or can't wait for you to listen to this, right? Or something that's going to call them to listen to your feedback. You can then, after you've added this feedback, you can see below, press the blue button to add more feedback, or you might switch to a different page and add feedback on something there. If you choose the emoji option down at the bottom, just like the other emojis inside of Book Creator, you can access that too, but you can place that emoji there. And I saw John put this in the chat there. This is kind of like what I just said. You probably don't need a full 2 minutes, right? But you could leave up to 200 comments per page. I'm not sure what the max would be. I think every project's a little bit different, right? Depending on how deep you're doing, but 200 sure seems like a lot. And it's great to have that flexibility though. Down at the bottom of the screen, I can also connect apps in Book Creator to different things like feedback stickers. So you might have heard me mention earlier, right? Like you don't want to just give a sticker, right? You want to have some actionable message that goes along with it, or some specific feedback. This is a great compliment. Could you just leave a sticker? Of course. Maybe there are things that don't need to have a next step that goes along with it, but I love pairing these with that thoughtful, actionable feedback, and it's a great best practice to keep in mind too. There's also animated emojis, which are a lot of fun. They're not moving on my screen because I've taken this screenshot to share with you, but they will move around. Sorry for that awkward emoji acting it out, but can't help it. And of course, you can add a GIF here too. So you have this option to add in GIFs into your or stickers into your comments. And of course, accompanying it with text is an option too. In the comment settings, which you can see here on the screen, you can allow students to comment on any of the pages of a particular book, or you could disable that piece. We'll go in and take a live look and press a lot of buttons together for you to see. And as you are adding more comments and more comments are being added to student books, when they're back in their library, you'll see there's that little, right next to my little avatar in the upper right-hand corner, there's that little bell that'll show you if a new comment has been added to your book. So just so much that you can do here when it comes to using Book Creator in a classroom environment. But the feedback piece is one that I'm very excited about. And you just saw John add there another a link, a reminder of where to go if you've got specific questions. So on my screen now, I believe you should see that same math journal that I used to grab some screenshots for today. So inside of here, we'll go into edit mode. You can see my math journal. I made this cover using the Canva add-on here within Book Creator. If you haven't tried it out, it is pretty fantastic. And when I go to add a new page, or add something new to my page, I've got all the same functionality that you know and love about Book Creator. What is new inside of the space isn't the plus sign at the top, but it's the plus sign down here at the bottom. So you can see here that I originally took the screenshots for this a couple weeks ago on September 4th. So you can see the comments from back then where I left that audio comment and that emoji comment. But I'm going to make a new page for you and show you what it looks like to add in some more comments with a fresh start. So on this new page, and I'll X out the comments, students might, for their math journal, add a recording, they might add a video, they might add an update, they might add a drawing. We're going to go to the pen tool real fast here. I'm going to choose a color. We'll imagine that they are doing 2 + 2 = 4. I hope that you'll have some patience with me and my trackpad drawing skills. And I can add this here. You might have asked students to give an explanation or how did they figure this out, right? We're just using this as our quick demo for today. I'm more concerned about the comment feature. So down here at the bottom, I'm going to click comments. And it says you're going to be the first one to leave a comment on this page. It also, because this is still a new feature, will give you the quick link to help docs or some extras that might be worth checking out, just knowing that that's where it's basically sending to you. When you click that blue add a comment, this is where all the magic is happening. This is where I might say something like, I love how you did this, or next time you might want to, or you can include emojis to help represent your number sentence, right? I could say anything I wanted and I might type it out here. I could also jump on video. This might look a little funky with where how we're doing Zoom today, but I'm going to press the button anyway so that you can see, even if it might look a little funky here. You can see my background behind me is not as fancy in real life as my Zoom virtual background. So I can go ahead and start recording. And this is where I might share something about giving a suggestion to use emojis that go along with this, or whatever I want to talk about. I'll hit stop recording. I could add some text. I might say a quick hello and hit post. And now this will go essentially in this feed here for a student to take a look at. You saw in my screenshots that I recorded my voice, so I have that option here too. I can go ahead and record my voice. This is where I might use my best practices, where I share an example or a sentence starter or something that might help students give an explanation on how they solve the problem. And I can hit post. This one I'll just leave as a quick audio. My next comment option are those static emojis, where I've got my search bar here. You can see some of the things I often search for when I'm inside of Book Creator. We'll do a turtle for today. and I can hit post, maybe with a explanation to go along with that one. And this is also where you'll find the feedback stickers. So you can see lots of different stickers here. I can click here at the top and find even more, some thematic ones that I might click on and add, or I might add one of those animated emojis, or I might even do a search for a GIF or a sticker and add these in here too. So lots of options within here. If I go to the setting bar, this is where you'll find that ability to allow students to comment on different parts of their book. So if you are opening this up to a class, right, you might have that as an option. You also have the ability to edit or remove any of your comments. I think keeping comments here is great. You might have students respond and say like, yep, I'm on it, right? I took care of it. They might vote up, right? Something, or do that. I shouldn't say vote up exactly, but give a thumbs up that they took care of it, right? Or I'm on it. And so you might build that into part of your routine for giving feedback here too. So a lot of options here. And of course, you can hide that so it's not distracting for students. If I come back here to my books, I could go to a little alert here. And I could see, right, if someone has left a comment on any of my books. I can also jump in, right, to another book that is in this particular library. So what I would love for us to try out together today, if you're feeling up for it, is to jump into a library with me so that we can see the commenting in action with the group that is joining us live today. So I'm going to create a new library. I'm going to do demo and today's date. I'm going to turn off collaboration for right now, but I'll let you read each other's books, edit your own book, and allow you to search for pictures. And I'm going to create this library. So would love for you to join me. If you already know how to join a book creator library, I'm going to drop that code in the chat. If you haven't joined a book creator library before, you'll want to sign in at app.bookcreator.com. I just placed that link in the chat. You can sign in as a teacher, which means you toggle from the yellow student page to the blue teacher page. And then when you're inside your teacher dashboard, you'll scroll all the way to the bottom where it says join a library, and you will place that H code right in here. Now, my goal today is to comment on a couple books that are inside of this library. So if you decide to jump in, just know that I might leave a comment or two on your book. So hopefully you'll feel comfortable with that. I see John's in here already. And you can create a book about anything you want today. Maybe you might create a book about a favorite food you love to eat. You might make a book with a favorite place you love to visit. You might make a book with a page for all of your favorite movie recommendations from 2022. You could go in any direction. The goal for today is really to have you make a book and join me here in this library. So to show you this again, the invite code I put into the chat, so you should see it there in the chat already. You will log in by going to app.bookcreator.com or create a new teacher account. That link is in the chat there for you. And then when you're signed into your teacher dashboard, My Libraries is pretty busy. You'll scroll down here to the bottom to where it says join a library. And this is where you'll paste in or carefully type in that HLY code to join this library. So it looks like we've got a couple authors in here already. I'm going to jump into your book here, Jose, if that's hopefully a thumbs up since you're here in the library. Now, I don't see anything just on your page just yet, right? So you might be working and it's taking me a moment to upload, but as soon as I do, I can press that plus sign. I can add a comment, and maybe for right now, I'll just say, I can't wait to see what you create today. And maybe I'll add in an animated emoji that goes along with it and hit post. So leaving a comment in here. I can come back out here. Maybe I'll jump over to John's new book here. I have best sounding cars. I love it. So I'm going to go here to the plus sign. And I know you've just gotten started, so I might not have any thoughtful feedback just yet, but maybe I'll make a recommendation or I'll ask a question. And I might say something like, have you seen the TED Ed video on self-driving cars? And I might add that in as a suggestion for something for John to check out. So if you are looking to join us, I see you've got a few more people who've jumped in. You can create a new book here at the top, and I can pop in and leave some comments here on what you are creating. I see Angela's joined us. I know I'm jumping in just as you all are getting started, but I want to make sure you see what this looks like on your end when you get a notification or someone's left a comment on your work. So I can go here to feedback, stickers. I can choose one, lots of different ones to choose from, some fun Earth Day ones, some for fall ones. I'll do this one for you, that I believe in you. Love a good fall pun. So can't wait to see what you make there, Angela. Roxanne is joined in. Same thing here with the ability to add a comment. I might record my voice, add an emoji. I could do a few different things here. I can't wait to see what you create here inside of Book Creator. And you can, of course, give that little thumbs up or 100 right after. So these are looking great, everyone who's joined in. And look at my screen. I've got a little notification here, and I can see the comments that have come back in here already. So I can click on John's here. John's seen that TED Ed video I recommended. Yeah, it's one of my favorite. I think about it all the time. Like, that's how it works, or I know how that works, right? I can see Jose Luis's comment here too. Love it. Right? The thumbs up and the animated emoji. So just so much that you can do inside of the space. And of course, if you've already spent time in Book Creator, you know that you'll have lots of options in here too, right? All the good stuff that you love, right? You can put things in different orders. You can take a look at any notifications, or your unread ones, right, are going to live there with that new little button there. I'll go back into this view. I can pop in. And of course, I could leave a comment, or I could leave feedback, right, on something specific that someone is working on. So I might say something like, I like how your photo helps set the tone for this book. And I might provide a suggestion, or I might share a place to go to for look for photos. I might say something like, you may want to add a citation by choosing that option in the inspector, the I menu, and we'll hit post there. Let me see. I don't think I got to yours just yet. Let's see. So I might add another comment here. I might put in an animated emoji as you're getting started. Maybe something like, I can't wait to see what you're going to create, right? So I've got a lot of these to choose from, right? I might say, looks like a great start with the hand clap emoji, and hit that there. So lots of things that you can do inside of these spaces. I know I shared some of the resources that you might want to take a look at or bookmark. This is the help page that talks and takes you through all of the things that we're looking at together today. You heard me mention about adding in those extra pieces from the App Store, and that special big announcement from the beginning of September, right? That takes you through all the things you can do, and a super fun YouTube video that you might want to share too. So I want to make sure we have time today to answer any questions that might have come in about these different pieces. The big thing to make sure you know where to go is inside of your libraries, right? Once you click on a book, you're going to hit that brand new plus sign down at the bottom right-hand corner where you can add a comment. So, John, were there any questions that have come in that I've missed so far, or anything you want to make sure that people know about that I didn't mention?
No, I haven't seen any extra comments, Monica, other than ones that we've already answered. So yeah, great stuff again. I personally love this option. The feedback thing I think is fantastic. And the one thing I love about it especially is that, text-based feedback is kind of limiting, especially if you are a teacher of young students. And so a lot of times young kids can't really read the text messages and the message that you have. So I love the options of putting photos and videos and audio in there as well, just to kind of spice things up and get kids excited about feedback, because it shouldn't be a painful process, in my opinion, right?
Totally agree. And I think that's one of the big things that when we talk about feedback in digital spaces, that gets me so excited. And one of the reasons why I was definitely pumped for these big updates is that, you can give feedback in ways kids are actually going to take action on, right? Like, forget about, or I shouldn't say forget about, but in this case, right? Like, you aren't so concerned about the time factor for yourself, although that's a whole nother conversation, right? And I just saw Zena put in there too about a great way to save, give feedback and hopefully save some time with over 100 students. But the big piece that jumped out to me first was, just like you said, the students who are going to use voice recording, who are going to feel a lot less intimidated if they see you on video, right? Sharing about that too, right? So there's just so many things here that, really jump out for me. And I did a little zoom in here down at the bottom, right, of what you can do inside of these spaces, including adding in those additional apps. Just so many options that really make your feedback experience shine and hopefully make it easier for you to commit this school year to a really consistent, actionable feedback routine that you can do, without just more seamlessly than you might have done in Book Creator in the past.
We did just get a question. Can we translate the feedback into other languages? And the answer is we don't have a translation tool, but you can certainly take your text, copy it into like Google Translate, and then translate it, and then copy the translated version and dump that right inside the text there as well. So again, we don't have a translation tool specifically, but there's definitely ways around that.
Yeah, and sometimes I forget to mention too, right? Like with the voice recording or the video recording, you can talk in any language, right? So you might have, right, you might yourself be proficient conversationally in a language where you're not confident, right, typing things out. I know I felt that way in the past with different things. And so you might find that, you are doing a copy and paste off of Google Translate, right? Or you are using some other tool, or you're just recording your voice speaking in a language that's going to be good for a student to hear you talk in, whether that's conversationally proficient in English if they're learning English as a new language, right, or in a language that they are proficient in.
Yeah. All right. I don't see any other questions here, Monica, but thanks again so much for everybody who's been joining here. Monica, thank you for doing this for us. We appreciate it. And there's Monica's information again real quick. So if you need to have any follow-up questions or ask anything, there's a good place to reach her. And the video will be on our YouTube channel tomorrow or later tonight. I'm not sure. Whenever somebody pushes that button and makes it go live, that's when it will be there. But I just want to thank everybody again for being here. Be safe out there. Happy bookmaking.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. Thanks, Monica.
Thanks so much. Great to see you, John. Yeah.
You too.